All right, so here we are, part 2. Gonna do a sandwich tier list. This was suggested to me. I mean, after bagels, I think the next most important food is probably sandwiches. You know, you have bread and you have filling, so really nothing wrong with that. I think it's probably one of the best foods that's ever been created on Earth. So these are just sandwiches that I know about, sandwiches that are popular in America. So pretty self-explanatory. I'm just going to list these out by, best to worst here. So let's just get started. I think that this is a pretty obvious one. Peanut butter and jelly is F tier. Okay, and the reason why is because if you're going to do peanut butter and banana, peanut butter and honey, that's one thing. But peanut butter and jelly, I mean, if you're 6, it's delicious. But, when you get to be an adult, you got to move on. You know what I mean? It's really nothing that you can add to this to make it any better than 2 pieces of bread with a little bit of filling. The next one I'm going to do is actually going to be toasted cheese. Okay, so this is going to be a bit controversial. People are going to be out there like, I love toasted cheese. Well, that's great. But there's really nothing going on here. I mean, it's basically just melted cheese in between 2 slabs of bread. It's the same as a PB&J, There's not a lot of variety. There's not a lot you can really do to spice this up. You can use some really fancy cheese and some good bread, but at the end of the day, if you're going to use fancy bread and good fillings, you may as well just make one of these other sandwiches, because there's some other good things here that you can do with some more variety. It's kind of hard to see maybe for some of you, but I put little labels on there. I remember what these are. So we got a Cuban, French dip, ham and cheese, Italian, Reuben, Sloppy Joe, Tuna Fish. The next one I'm going to put on this list is the Sloppy Joe. Sloppy Joe's E tier. It goes down there with toasted cheese because, although it's got a little bit more variety, I guess, technically you can do a little bit more with the Sloppy Joe than you could with a toasted cheese. It's the same thing where, it's just not a good concept. It's basically just like a huge mess that you put between 2 disgusting buns, and it's like never going to be on good bread. If you're going to use good bread, you're not going to make a Sloppy Joe, And I don't know. There's just not a whole lot of times in my life when I've been like, man, I really want a big sloppy pile of meat in between 2 disgusting pieces of bread. So I'm just going to put that one down there in E tier. I think that's where it belongs. Next one up here, I struggle with this. BLT. I think has to go kind of low. And actually, no, I take it back. Let's do Tuna Fish next. Tuna Fish is D tier. It's low tier, but it's above the others. I mean, you can do some good things to Tuna Fish. I mean, you can put like cheese on there. You can mix in some onions and some jalapenos. You can do a lot with Tuna Fish sandwich. Tuna's pretty versatile. It's a little bit like chicken. There's a lot you can do to it. It's got a lot of options. But it's still Tuna Fish sandwich. I mean, you're almost always going to be taking the tuna out of a can. If you're not, then it goes up higher. But I think most people are just going to take tuna out of the can, So I think that's why it deserves D tier. Next one I'm going to do is BLT. BLT... Okay, let's do BLT. BLT can be D tier. Okay, because if you put avocado on this, if it's a BLAT with avocado, it can go up higher or something cool like that. But with just bacon, lettuce, and tomato, I mean, there's just not a lot going on. There's just not enough, contrast between the different elements. Bacon and the lettuce, okay, I got something. And then the tomato is just kind of a big, like, thing sitting in the middle. It's compared to a club, okay? A club sandwich is C tier, okay? Because club sandwiches are pretty good. There's really not... I've really never had like a really good club sandwich. There's never been a place that I went to that was like, oh man, I really want the club sandwich. But it's better than a BLT because it's kind of like a BLT, but then they added in some chicken, So I think it's kind of cool to add in that extra, level of flavor. Kind of add in something else you can mess around with. You can add some flavors in with that and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's about where it belongs. There might be some people out there who are huge fans of club, but look at the bread. Okay, what do you think that is? White bread. 3 pieces of white bread. I don't want that. So now we're getting into some good sandwiches here, okay? The next one I'm going to put on this list is probably the ham and cheese. Ham and cheese is C tier. And C tier, okay, folks, look, it's not terrible. It's in the middle, okay? It's not bad, right? You're not gonna be like, ugh, ham and cheese. But there's really not much I can say about this. It's sort of a little bit like toasted cheese. There's not a lot you can do to it. If you got ham and cheese and lettuce, tomatoes and stuff, it's a pretty standard sandwich, right? It's not bad, but some of these things down here, I mean, there's just some really interesting, really dynamic, very versatile sandwiches down here that can really have hold their own, sort of have their own space in the sandwich world. And a great example is pastrami and rye. Pastrami and rye, I think, is B tier because pastrami is just a bit better of a meat than ham. It's situational. There's probably going to be people out there who would flip these, and that's understandable. But for me, pastrami and rye goes on B tier, especially because it's on rye bread. I mean, ham and cheese, it could be on any kind of bread. This bread, I don't know what that is. You could put it on a wheat bread, and then it would be disgusting. But on rye bread, with pastrami, it's going to be like a nice deli European sandwich. I think that's B tier. That's pretty good. Next one up, I'm going to probably do Italian. Also goes in B tier. Again, a good European sandwich. I don't know if people don't know Italian. It's got like all kinds of good meat in there. It's got like salami and bologna, all kinds of crazy stuff. It's like a grinder of different kinds of like cured meats and stuff. So big fan of that because there's a lot of flavor, a lot of variety. It's usually in good bread because it's Italian. It's got some Italian bread or something. So I think that's B tier. I think, it's possible to do this badly, but honestly, it's kind of hard because there's just like a lot of good meats on there. It's one of those things where like, if you have good ingredients, it's going to be a good sandwich. You're not doing a lot of technique here when you make sandwiches. It's really just all about the ingredients, right? So, which brings us to the next one. I think we're going to start A tier with the French dip. French dip is just really well cooked meat. The meat's just really flavorful. And the dip that you put it in, also really flavorful. People might be like, wow, that's cheating, there's a dip. But I mean, the sandwich is still really good by itself. I've almost always had really good experiences with the French dip. And one of the big parts, this is going to be a big theme, right, of this whole list, is the bread. The bread on French dip is good. It's like a ciabatta roll usually, something good like that. I mean, it's not like going to be some kind of whole wheat nonsense, some store-bought white bread, nothing like that, That's one of the reasons it's A tier. Really good flavor. Totally pass on the French fries though. Just imagine there's no French fries there. Nobody wants French fries with their French dip. Next one I'm probably gonna put on here is I think I'm gonna put cheesesteak in A tier, and here's why. Because I've had really good cheesesteaks, but it's also possible to do cheesesteak poorly, and it's just because if you put too much meat in there and not enough, bell peppers and onions and cheese and stuff, you end up with just kind of like a big pile of meat. Like there's not like a lot of vegetables, like raw vegetables like lettuce or anything in there. They kind of balance it out. So a poorly made cheesesteak will be pretty bad because it's just kind of like a weird burger at that point. But if it's like really well balanced with the cheese that you're using, and if you put the bell peppers in, you get the onions, then you have some. It's sort of like almost like a hash, like you're mixing a lot of good flavors together. Then it's a really good sandwich. So that's definitely A tier. Next one I'm probably going to put on there is... See, I struggle with this, guys. All right? We're down to these last three. I struggle. I want to put Cuban in A tier. Because Cuban can be S tier also, right? It can go either way. I think for everyone, who's watching, they might be like, oh, it's S tier, it's A tier, whatever. Okay, I just have not had a really good Cuban before. I've had some good Cubans, but I don't think I've ever been blown away by a Cuban. And so I think my experience is a bit swayed by that. I've had a few good ones, but I just feel like the marinade has to be really good. You have to really put in the work. Cubans take a long time to make. But it's still a really good sandwich. I mean, don't get it wrong. A tier is still great sandwiches. But I mean, you got to save S tier for the best. Okay, we got Reuben. That's the first one. That's obvious. Okay, Reuben is S tier, and I will fight anyone who says otherwise. Okay, because you have two different options for meats, right? You have corned beef, and you have pastrami, and both are good. Okay, and then you've got your Swiss cheese, your Thousand Island, and your sauerkraut. The sauerkraut's a really important part. Okay, when you have all these cured, you get all this cured meat and the sauerkraut, it's like this really good deli European flavor. I mean, the contrast of the sweetness of the Thousand Island with the saltiness of the meat with the tartness of the sauerkraut. There's just so much good stuff like really going on there. It is possible to go too thick with a Reuben. I think that you have to kind of be careful there. If you put too much meat, then it becomes messy and hard to eat. And with sandwiches, the whole point is that it's sort of compact, right? You have bread, it's filling, and then bread. And if you put too much in the middle, the bread just becomes like an afterthought, and that's not what you want. Which is why one of the other things in S tier here is banh mi. You can't really see the title, but this is banh mi. Banh mi is a Vietnamese sandwich with a lot of pickled vegetables and then different kinds of meat, usually some kind of really well marinated cooked like pork or maybe some tofu. So this one's a bit versatile as well, but I just think it's S tier because it's really fresh. You know, the bread is usually really good. They usually do a really good roll. And it's just really fresh. There's a lot of really good pickled vegetables. It's got this really good Southeast Asian kind of flavor all packed into a sandwich. And I just think, you know, if you're thinking about eating a sandwich and you have the option to eat something that has, you know, this many good things on it, it's kind of hard to pass that up. So even though the raw flavor of, you know, ham and cheese sandwich just being so comfortable, being something that you're familiar with, is great. Like banh mi is a little bit more something like you might get at like a, you know, like a sandwich shop or something like that. Still, really good sandwich, very unique. Definitely deserves the attention of being S tier. So that's the official list here. You know, there's obviously a few more sandwiches that could get thrown in here, but I think this is a pretty good list. The only things I can definitely see are like, you know, some of these things kind of moving around, but I really think most of this stuff is where it belongs. Club sandwiches are just not that good. I don't want to be in that club. You know what I mean? So that's all I have to say about that.